This
Chaturmukha
conference will now be recorded.
Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadirogan Sadadanushaktan Sheshakaya Prasrutan Sheshan Aulsukyamoharadidan Jakhana Yo Purva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. Namaskaram to all of you. We will be switching over to or starting with a new chapter today. Rutucharya Adhyay. Athada Rutucharya Adhyayam Vyakhyasyaamaha iti hasmahur Adayo Maharshayaha. Rutucharya. Charya, the word we are familiar with. We saw it in Dinacharya. And here we are talking about the Charya, Charanam, Acharanam required for Rutu. So there is a question why. Reason is very simple. We have to change the Dinacharya according to Rutu. We have to change the Dinacharya according to Rutu. And Rutu is basically a manifestation of three experiences, that is Shita, Ushna and Vrishti. Shitam, Ushnam and Vrishti. That is why there is one definition for Rutucharya. Rutucharya tu Shitoshna Vrishti dosha pratikriya. Rutucharya tu Shitoshna Vrishti dosha pratikriya. So around the year, the intensity, gravity, nature, characteristic of these three experiences, Shita, Ushna and Vrishti, changes. Sometimes they go to their extremes one at a time. There may be mixing, there may be the other one going to peak. So there can be different permutations and combinations. And as part of this lokam, prakriti, prapancham, same events will be creating their repercussions in the human body. So the Dinacharya cannot be the same all through the year. So we have to look for the characteristics of Rutu. We have already learned that Kalam as one critical factor as far as the Nimitta Karana of Arogya as well as Roga is concerned. Kala, Artha Karmanam Yogo. Kala, it begins with Kala. Kala, Artha Karmanam Yogo, Hina Mithyadi Matrakaha, Samyak Yogascha Vitneyo, Rogarogyeika Karanam. That is a very categorical statement. There is no doubt about it. It is something like a universal statement. So everything starts with the Kala. And we have learned many things about Kalam. Ksanadir Vyadhyavasthacha Kalo Bheshaja Yoga Krut. We have learned it. Then Parinamam. Parinamam is the change. Change needs time. So sometimes, even though they are related in a cause-effect manner, they are told as one and the same. So we will find Kalam is used as synonym for Parinamam. Kala, Karma cha Dushkritam, like that. So Kalam is Parinamam as well. Then we find Kalajam as a type of vyadhi in the sevenfold classification of diseases, we find kalajam. Then in the division of balam, we find sahajam, kalajam, and yuktikritam as 3 types of balam. So there we find kalam as a contributory or a critical element as far as the gain of balam is concerned. Kalajam. And in that aspect also we have learned many things regarding kalam. But again, one point we missed. In the Navadravyas, we have kalam. We have that Panchabhuta, then Atma, Manas, kalam and dik. Kalam and dik. There, kalam is that principle which is included in the list of dravyas, having that yatra ashrita karma guna karanam samavayatta dravyam, that sort of a characteristic features are fulfilled. So kalam is also regarded as a dravyam. And I think we should have, before getting into this description of Rutucharya directly, I think we should have some idea about the possible understandings regarding Kala. That is the way in which Ashtanga Sangraham and another important text, Sushruta Samhita, presents this topic. In Ashtanga Sangraham, we find Kalohi Nama Bhagavan Anadi Nidhano Yathopachita Karmanusari Yad Anurodhad Adityadaya Ghadaya Cha Mahabhuta Vishesha Tatha Tatha Vipariнаmantaha Janmavadam Janma Maranasya Rutu Rasa Vaidya Dosha Deha Bala Vyapat Sambadam Cha Karanatvam Pratyayadam Pratipadyante. This is a beautiful statement which is almost similar, not exactly. Vaidya has made a lot of improvements in that perspective of kalam, but I think we should see both. So first we will see what is meant by kalam in Vaidya's perspective. Kalohi nama Bhagavan Anadi Nidhana. Anadi Nidhana, there is no end. Sorry, there is no beginning, there is no end. Kalam is a continuum. Kalam is a continuum without a beginning and without an end. Kalohi nama Bhagavan. Bhagavan, he is worshipped as the Almighty. Bhagavan, the Lord. Kalaha. Kalaha is a word which literally means the regent of death. The regent of death, Yama. So that way also he is a Lord. Kalaha. Kalaha hinama Bhagavan Anadi Nidhanaha. No opening, no ending. Yathopachita Karmanusari. Very interesting. Yathopachita Karmanusari. Actually, what is meant in this statement? Yathopachita, Yatha Upachita Karma Anusari. Karma Anusari. What sort of Karma Anusari? Upachita Karma Anusari. Yathopachita Karma Anusari. Means for every living being, it is believed that the Kala follows the nature, the type or the quantum of their respective karma vishesha. So it is an assumption. For every living being, the Kala follows the nature or type or quantum of their karma vishesha. So yadhopachita karmanusari. This is very interesting aspect. At one point in Shariram, we find that swakarma klesha choditaha. Swakarma klesha choditaha. Garbhas sambhadyate. So it may be an interesting point to connect these things together. Then next is yad anurodhad adityadayah घादयः महाभूतविशेषाः च तथा तथा विपरिणमन्तः जन्मवदां जन्ममरणस्य ऋतुरसवीर्यदोषदेहबलव्यापत्सम्पदां च कारणत्वं प्रत्ययदां च प्रतिपद्यन्ते. Looks like a complex statement or complex sentence, but we will see, because it is essential understanding about kalam. Yad anurodhad anurodham, adhinata, control or influence. So it is under the control or influence of kalam. What? The adityadayah, the celestial body is like aditya. Then ghadayah mahabhuta visheshaah cha. The mahabhuta visheshas like akasha. Then what is next? Act as the hetu as well as pratyaya. We should understand the difference between hetu and pratyaya. Both are synonyms or paryayas of karanam. We will find it later. So these celestial bodies like aditya and mahabhuta visheshas like akasha, vayu, agni, etc. act as the hetu as well as the pratyaya for the birth and death of living beings. For the birth and death of living beings. And again act as the hetu and pratyaya for the properness, sambat, and improperness, vipat, of rutu, rasa, virya, dosha, deha, and bala. So in short, there is nothing which is happening or happened or will not happen. There is nothing happening or happened in the past or will happen in the future without the control or influence of kala. Without the control or influence of kala. Yad anurodhad adityadayah ghadayah mahabhuta visheshascha tatha tatha vipariнаmantaha. So this adityadayah ghadayah mahabhuta visheshaah cha, they evolve or transform appropriately according to the requirement by the influence of kala to cause the birth and death of all living beings, and also this makes the ritu, rasa, virya, dosha, deha, bala, everything proper or improper, sampannam or vipannam. So with this statement, we have not completed it. With this statement, we get an idea that kalam is that principle, that tattvam, which encompasses everything that has happened in the past, everything that is happening in the present, and everything that is going to happen in the future. That is the significance of kalam. So we should have an idea about how the concept of kalam is perceived. I think today we will focus only on that aspect before going to what is the Varsha Rutucharya, what is the Grishma Rutucharya, and everything. Because I think somebody should have been inspired by getting some nuts and bolts of kalam to continue their efforts to explore further deeper into the Indian understanding of Kalam, which is quite exhaustive, quite wide, quite broad, and quite interesting as well. After going through these concepts multiple times, I have a feeling that a proper understanding of the concept of Kalam is quite essential for understanding the concepts of Ayurveda as well. For understanding the concepts of Ayurveda as well. We have two types of Kala Ganana. That is, number one is that Kshanadi, number two is Vyadhyavastha. True. But everywhere, even at one point of time, this Kalatnyaha can be used as a synonym for Vaidya, a good Sadvaidya. So that is the close relation about the understanding of Kalam and the understanding of Vaidya. Then we have to understand what is the difference between Hetu and Pratyayam. Actually, Karanam is of two types. One is Hetu and the other one is Pratyayam. Hetu means the cause or that cause which makes Karyam effect by direct means. Whereas Pratyayam is that cause which of course is the Karanam for the Karyam, Karyolpatti, by means of creating appropriate conditions, situations, ambience, by making the environment for the manifestation of Karyam highly conducive, Sahacharyam, which makes the Sahacharyam conducive. Such factors, such causes are known as Pratyaya. Here regarding the Kalam, we find that it is the Hetu as well as Pratyaya. It is the direct cause of creation, and it is also the associating or the participatory or environmental or whatnot causes as well as for the creation. So it is Hetu and Pratyayam simultaneously. Very good. Now we will find something about the explanation of Kala from Sushruta Samhita. This is just for understanding. Again, the same opening we will find. Actually, Vakbhada has taken the opening from Sushruta Samhita. Kalo Hinama Bhagavan. So there also he is considered as the Lord, the Almighty. Swayambhu. It is Swayambhu. So there is no origin for Kala. That is why it is Swayambhu. There is no end and there is no middle. Anadi Madhya Nidhanaha. It is Anadi Madhya Nidhanaha. Atra Rasavyabat Sambatti. This is the point which we saw elaborated by Vakbhada. Rasavyabat Sambatti. Vakbhada tells it in a elaborate version like Ruturasa Vaidya Dosha Deha Bala Vyapat Sambadam Karanatvam Pratyayadam Cha Pradipadyante. Then Jivita Marane. Again, we saw this as explained by Vakbhada. It was like Janmavatam Janma Maranasya Hetuhu. Janmavatam Janma Maranasya Karanatvam Pratyayadam Cha Pradipadyante. Then here it is Jivita Marane Cha Manushyanam Ayate. Next is in Sushruta Samhita. Don't bother about the text, don't bother about the visual, just listen, that is enough. Saha Sukshmamapi Kalam Na Liyata Iti Kalaha. It is attempted to make sense of the word called Kalam. Kalam is called kalam. Why? Saha sukshmamapi kalam na liyata iti kalaha. Sukshmamapi kalam na liyate. It does not stagnates or adheres. It does not adhere or stagnate nowhere, even to a subtle unit or part, because of its nature of moving uninterruptedly, continuously. So even for a while, it does not adhere. It does not get stagnated anywhere. So sukshmamapi kalam na liyate iti kalaha. This is the way in which it is explained. But interestingly, there are a couple of altered versions for this line. Number one is Saha sukshmamapi kalam kaliyate iti kalaha. Saha sukshmamapi kalam kaliyate iti kalaha. Kaliyate, kalanad. That means it enumerates. Sukshmam api kalam. Kalam means part. So sukshmam api kalam, it enumerates even the subtlest unit by means of the subtlest unit or part of whatever is going to be referred. I would like to comment it as change. So it enumerates even the subtlest unit or part of change. So it is called as kala. Saha sukshmamapi kalam kaliyate. Another version is also there. Another version is Saha sukshmamapi kalam liyate iti kalaha. That means it adheres. Earlier we saw that it does not adhere. But here it adheres even to the subtlest part, because everything is related to kalam. So you will not find even a sukshmamapi kala to which kalam is not associated. You will not find even a smallest possible part of anything to which kalam is not associated. So we find different versions of that sentence. Again, he is explaining. Sushruta gives much more clarity to the idea of kalam. Sankalayati kalayati va bhutani iti kalaha. Sankalayati kalayati va bhutani iti kalaha. Sankalayati. Dalhana comments. Samharanad ekarashi bhutani iti kalaha. Samkalayati samharanad. Samharanam. It is death. Ekarashi karodi. Ekarashikaranam, make one group, one set. Ekarashi. So with samharanam, it makes every bhuta, every living being, one set. That way it is known as kalam. Again, sankalayati sukha dukhabhyam yojayati bhutani iti. Yojana, yunakti, yojayati. Bhutani yojayati. It connects, samyoga. It connects bhutani, all living beings, all creatures, with sukha dukkha. Kalam connects every being with sukham and dukkham. That way also it is known as kalam. Samkalayati sukha dukkhabhyam bhutani yojayati iti kalaha. Another word we observed, we found here was kalayati iti kalaha. Kalayati. Kalayati iti sankshipati. Sankshipati. Athava mrityu samibam nayati. That is where kala represents the region of death, as I told earlier, the yama. So mrityu samibam nayati iti kalaha. So kala also reflects that meaning. It takes, it guides you to the premises of death. It guides you to the target of death, kalaha. So, the word kala has very wide shades of meaning. Again, kalayati, kalayati the sankhyaadi, enumerates. Sankhyaadi iti va kalaha. So, kalam is a word with a very wide spectrum of meanings, wide shades of meaning, which can be useful, which can be beneficial in explaining many areas in the textbook. Fine. So that is how we find. Again, I was quite fascinated by some more areas. I thought it is something limited to Ayurveda in the beginning, but during my earlier exposure to the Rutucharya as part of teaching, I was quite impressed to find a lot of interesting ideas about Kalam. I think I'm not going to explain everything. It will be so extensive, but there are some ideas like Janyanam Janaka Kalo. Janyanam Janakaha Kalo. Kalaha Janyanam Janakaha. That is the creator, which we saw in a different word, in a different arrangement of ideas. Janyanam Janaka Kalo Jagadam Ashrayo Mataha. Jagadam Ashraya. Paraparatva Dhi Hetu. This Kalam is the Hetu for the Dhi, for the Buddhi. What sort of Buddhi? Paraparatva Buddhi. So Kalam is the Hetu for Paraparatva Buddhi. Kshanadihi Syad Upadhitaha. We conditionally understand, perceive the Kalam as Kshanadi. We, with some sort of conditions of measurements, we perceive Kalam as Kshanadi. Fine. Then some more idea, because these sort of ideas came into existence in our literature, I think is because of the very towering presence that India had in the understanding of time in our ancient branch of wisdom called Jyotishastram. So we had a very towering understanding or branch of thought or original thinking about this Kalam. Kalanad sarvabhutanam sakala parikirtitaha. So many ideas. Kalanad means to enumerate, and also it represents the death. That is what we saw earlier. Then we also find some strange ideas regarding this famous slokas like Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. Then there is a sense of Kalam in it. Then Yada Yadahi, that also represents a Kalam. Then in many contexts we will find very striking references about Kalam. Fine. Then regarding our context, Ashtanga Sangraham continues with how we measure this Kalam, as we saw in terms of different upadhis, different conditions of applications. Sangraha continues, in Ashtang Hrudayam, we will not find any of such references. That is why I am taking a little bit of time to say something about Ashtanga Sangraham. Saha Matra Kashtha Kala Nadiga Muhurta Yama Ahoratra Paksha Masa Rutu ayana varshabhedena dvadashatha vibhajyate. So kalam is divided on the basis of different units of measurements into 12. Dvadashatha. Matra, Kashtha, Kala, Nadiga, Muhurta, Yama, Ahoratra, Paksha, Masa, Rutu, Ayana, Varshabhedena, Dvadashatha Vibhajyate. Then he is trying to explain what do you mean by all these terms. Tatra Akshinimesho Matra. Tatra Akshinimeshaha. The time required for a blink is known as matra. Ta panchadasha kashtha. Panchadasha matra is known as kashtha. 15 such matras constitute a kashtha. Tas trimshad kala. 30 such kashtas form a unit called kala. Trimshad ta kala. Then ta sadashabhaga vimshadi nadiga. Ta sadashabhaga vimshati. That means 20 and 1 by 10. 20 and 1 by 10 kalas. They form a nadiga. Then nadiga dvayam muhurtaha. Nadiga dvayam muhurtaha. 2 nadigas. They form one muhurtam. Te tulyaratrinddive rashibhage चत्वारः पादोनाः यामः. Tulyaratrinddive rashibhage. In a time period where the nights and days are equal, padonaha chatvarah te. 3 and 3/4. Padonaha chatvarah. 3 and a 3/4 of these muhurtas. They form one yamam. They form one yamam. Taihi chadurbhihi ahah ratrihi cha. 4 yamas form a day. Also 4 yamas form a night. Taihi chadurbhihi ahah ratrihi cha. Panchadasha ahoratraha pakshaha. Panchadasha ahoratraha pakshaha. Panchadasha. 15 ahoratraha pakshaha. Panchadasha ahoratraha paksha. 15 ahoratra means a day and night together. So for convenience we call it a day. So 15 days constitute a paksha. Pakshadvayam masam. Pakshadvayam masam. 2 pakshas form one masam. Sa shuklandaha. Saha shuklandaha. For a masam, this paksham, 2 paksham which are coming together, one will be Krishna paksham and one will be Shukla paksham. One will be Krishna paksham and the other will be Shukla paksham. So after one amavasi, the period up to the next Paurnami, from one amavasi to the next Paurnami, you all know that the this lunar crescent will be developing, growing until it become full moon. This 15 days are known as the Shukla Paksha. So it will be from that Amavasi, next day onwards, we count Prathama, Dvidiya, Tritiya, Chaturthi, which are known as Tithi, and after 14, Chaturdashi, next will be Paurnami. So these 15 days are known as Shukla Paksha. Then from Paurnami onwards, again Prathama, Dvitiya, Tritiya, etc. Chaturdashi, then next Amavasi, which is known that 15 days are known as the Krishna Paksha. That is 2 Paksha, which constitute a Masam. Then from the count of Masam, Vagbhada continues. So actually what we saw here is closely related with the lunar movement. So it is known as Chandra Masam. Chandra Masam. And Chandra Masam, as I told earlier, is calculated from one Amavasi to the next Amavasi, and with one Paurnami in the middle. And the day in which that Paurnami occurs, the nakshatra of that particular day, that nakshatra of that Paurnami day will be, the name of the nakshatra will be used to represent that Chandra Masam. The name of that nakshatra will be used to name that Chandra Masam also. So that is how these things are counted. Now back to Ashtanga Sangraham. Margashirshadibhihi dvisanghyaihi taihi Hemanda Shishira Vasanta Grishma Varsha Sharadakyaha Shad Ridavo Bhavanti. This is how we come to Ritu. Margashirshadibhihi dvisanghyaihi taihi Hemanda Shishira Vasanta Grishma Varsha Sharadakyaha Shad Ridavo Bhavanti. So this is an interesting point. That means from Margashirsham. So Margashirsham is the name of a Chandra Masam. Dvisanghyaihi, with 2 months together. Taihi Hemandadi Shadridavo Bhavanti. So as per this listing of Shadritus, it will be something like this. Margashirsham and Pausham forms the Hemandam. Magham and Phalgunam forms the Shishirartu. Chaitram and Vaishakham forms the Vasantartu. Jeshtham and Ashadham forms the Grishmartu. Shravanam and Proshtapadam or Bhadrapadam forms the Varshartu. Ashvinam and Kartigam forms the Sharadritu. This is the 12 months Chandra Masas and 6 Ritus. This is purely based on Chandra, the lunar considerations. So here the calculation starts from Margashirsham. Margashirsham. Conventionally, in our ancient calendars, the year starts with the Chaitram, not with the Margashirsham, but here it is used as Margashirsham. Again, in Ashtang Hrudayam, we find it in a different way. Masair Dvisangher Maghadhyaihi Kramad Shadridava Smritaha. It starts from Magham. Magham, that means from Shishirartu onwards. Here it started from Hemandartu onwards. Conventionally, year starts with Chaitra. Okay, let it be there. Just for information, I am giving all these ideas. Masair Dvisangher Maghadhyaihi Kramad Shadridava Smritaha. As you all know, this division of Kalam, Ritu, season, time, basically suits to the northern part of our country. This suits to the northern part of the country. This need not be equally or uniformly applicable all over the country. This is very important. So there will be lot of changes or differences, variations that we have to understand locally, regionally. So you should have a better understanding about the regional climatic conditions. Then only you will be able to come up with the Rutucharya, appropriate Rutucharya. The characteristics of the seasons will show difference accordingly from place to place. The main reason could be the distance of that particular place from the equator. In our ancient system, Sri Lanka was considered as the point of reference. As we use the Greenwich right now, Lanka was the point of reference for all these measurements in our ancient system of measuring time. Then other features like the presence of oceans, mountains, or sea, then rivers, deserts, all these things, they also will be closely related with the seasonal characteristics. The seasonal characteristics in long run, kalam, might be the karanam for all these things what we see around, the mountains, oceans, trees, forests, deserts, whatever, rivers, everything. And in turn, what happens, these factors, these elements start influencing the kalam as well. So they buy and give, so or take and give, that sort of a relation comes to existence. So if we make one pattern as applicable everywhere, obviously we will fail. That is why we find a wide variety of references regarding the kalam in different classical textbooks. They are important. Unlike many other basic principles, these concepts are very important, and the differences in perceptions are also very important, because you have to understand what is applicable in your place. So for example, this Shad Ritus, what we explained from that Shishiram, Vasantam, etc., they are applicable to the area of India, Bharat, north to the Ganges, whereas south to the Ganges, the situation is different. Bhava Prakasha, Bhava Mishra observes it very interestingly. Not Bhava Mishra, many other, for example, we will find one quote from Kashyapa Samhita in Dalhana commentary. It is like this: Bhuyo varshati parjanyo Gangaya dakshine jalam. There is a high degree of rains, excessive rains on the southern part of Ganges, Ganga. Tena pravrsha varshakyau rutu tesham prakalpido. So on the southern part of the Ganges, you have to consider two varshartu, two monsoons. One is known as Pravrit and the other one is known as the classical Varsham. So there is an extended prevalence of monsoon on the southern part of the Ganga, whereas Gangaya uttare kule himasankule bhuya shitam atastesham hemanda shishiravrtu. In the northern part of the Ganges, the Shitam, cold weather, winter is more. is more prevalent. So we have to consider two Shita Ritus in the northern side. That is why we have Hemandam and Sisiram. So if you take Ganga as a point of reference or a line of reference better, it divides the country to two parts, northern and southern, and in the southern part monsoon is dominant, whereas in the northern part this winter is dominant. Accordingly, even in the consideration of 6 ritus, there are differences. Again, in reality, see, I'm talking now from Kerala. In Kerala, we don't have all these 6 ritus. Even if we consider it as a pravrit, we will not be able to make out all the 6 ritus. See, maximum. Predominantly, there are 2 ritus only in Kerala. Predominantly. That means Varsham and Grishmam. In between, you may be able to see maybe some hues or tinges, some very, very subtle, sukshma pratyaksham of the others if you are very particular to perceive. Otherwise, they may get unnoticed. Taking Kerala as a whole, of course, there are some areas like Munnar or some hill stations where this sort of Shaityam is a presence. But by and large, taking Kerala as a whole, it is not the case. We won't have the so-called this Sharat or Vasantam. They just come and go. If you have a very watchful eye, you may be able to see the Vasantam coming and going with very swift speed. Similarly, the Sharat also. We are overwhelmingly experiencing these 2 ritus. That means this Ushnam and Varsham, not Shidam, that way. So that is the way in which I'm giving the Kerala as a reference, as an example, that you have to understand all these things from your experience. Once I happened to visit Tripura as per the invitation of my good friend Supratim, Dr. Supratim, and I was amazed to see that early in the morning by 4 o'clock, it was very much like 7 a.m. in the morning if I was in Kerala. But the time was only 4:30 a.m. or 4 a.m. So that is the way in which the length of day and night varies from Kerala to Tripura. And obviously many other places also will be like this. So you have to focus on the Lakshanam of the Ritu, not the name of the Ritu, not the Rashi of the Ritu, the Lakshanam of the Ritu as the determining factor to understand which Ritu is this that we are living right now and what should be the Rutucharya accordingly. So it should not be based on the textbook. That is the important point. Now coming back to the passage which we were reading in Ashtanga Sangraham. So Shadridavaha Bhavanti Teshu Shishiradayaha Trayaha Ravehe Udagayanam Adanam Cha Shesha Dakshinayanam Visargascha Tau Adana Visargau Varsham. So we were starting with the different units of understanding the kalam, and we at one point we reached the Ritu. Then using the Ritu, Shishiradayaha Trayaha Ravehe Udagayanam Adanam Cha. So 3 Ritus constitute 1 Ayanam. So Shishiradi 3 forms the Uttarayanam, and the remaining 3 forms the Dakshinayanam. They are also known as Adana Kalam and Visarga Kalam respectively, and these 2, that means Adana Visargau, together forms the Varsha. So that is how we measure. In Sushruta Samhita, we will find one more point in this division. That means Sa Esha Nimeshadi Yuga Paryantaha. At one point, he is using one word called Yugam. That means Pancha Samvalsaram, 5 Samvalsaras, together known as Yugam. This Yugam is a technically valid term. Otherwise, generally Yugam is used for Chatvara, Yuga Visheshaha, Kridadayaha. But here, 5 Samvalsaras, when taken together, is technically known as Yugam. So he is concluding as a Saesha Nimeshadi Yuga Padyandaha Kalaha. So this understanding of Kala, which starts from that Nimesha, that means Matra, up to this Yugam, Chakravad Parivartamanaha. This repeats Parivartamanaha, Chakravad, again and again. So Kala Chakram ityuchyate iti ege. Some authors are of the opinion that this should be understood as Kala Chakram. Kala Chakram is a notion which has lot of philosophical meanings. Kala Chakram. So sa esha nimeshadi yuga paryantaha kalaha chakravat parivartamanaha kala chakram ityuchyate iti eke. So that is what we get extra from Sushruta Samhita, which is interesting. Again, in local style, local literature, local practices, you will be finding many other tools to measure kalam. In Kerala, we have one unit or one understanding called Nyatuvela, which is closely associated, very closely associated with the farming practices, the agricultural practices in this part. Similarly, I'm pretty sure that there will be different types of understanding of kalam. There is Chadurmasyam, that means the entire year is divided into 4 into 3, unlike the something like in between the this Rutu and Ayanam, there is a 4 into 3 Chadurmasya type of division related to this various madhams and everything, and which is very important ritualistically as well. So there may be many other things related to kalam. I can even include many other points for another 50 minutes, doesn't matter. But I think with this background, what we told, we can understand more about the Ritu. Regarding the units of time, we should have some understanding. We already saw that this matra, what is a matra? Then it is the time required for pronouncing one hraswaksharam. Then for 60 dirghaksharam, it becomes 1 vinadiga. Then this 1 vinadiga is approximately 24 seconds. 60 vinadigas constitute 1 nadiga, so it is 24 minutes. Then there are 60 nadigas in a day, so it is 24 hours. 2 nadigas form 1 muhurtam, so it is 48 minutes. So similarly, there are many things which we can understand, because sometimes in our clinical practice, when we go through the textbooks, we find that 1000 matra, you do this treatment for 600 matras, 1000 matras. So you should have some understanding, what do they mean, how much time I have to do, all these things. So a proper understanding of this time kalam could be beneficial. And we saw 2 words called Uttarayanam and Dakshinayanam. If you observe the sun keenly, you will find that in 365 days time, this sun moves towards the south and the north continuously. It slowly shifts from the equator towards one end in the south. Then it comes back from the southern end to the equator area, mid-sun, then goes to the north, reach the extreme of the north, it comes back, like that. So this is the basis for understanding the Uttarayanam and Dakshinayanam. So when you experience, of course, need not be the reality, but you experience that the sun moves from the southern extent or extremity and start moving towards the north, and it reaches till the northern extremity, northern extreme. That period is called Uttarayana. In the other way, it is known as Dakshinayana. Of course, this is a very complex topic, understanding the movement of the celestial bodies, grahas, and all these things. But I think we need not go for that elaborate version of the kalam, but we should have an understanding, because it is directly observed that in the Adhanam and the Visargam, there is a very notable difference in the balam of our sharira, kalaja balam. We will find at one point that this शीरे अग्र्यं वृष्टिघर्मे अल्पं balam madhyam tu sheshayoh. So especially while we are planning for this Rutushodhanam, and when we are supposed to understand what is a Sadharana Kalam, all these ideas will be helpful. I hope we will finish today's session with this introduction. With this introduction, I hope something will be there in our minds which will be helpful while we move further in the Ritu, and while we see the various charyas explained in different Ritus. So shall we conclude?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
So we will meet
Okay.
again on
Thank-
Sunday morning. Okay,
Yes.
namaste.
Yes.